In this section, we'll go over how to get parameters out of a parameterized URL query and use them in our response. First, let's remove these print messages. They're not really giving us any value anymore because we have tests that cover the response body. To do this, we'll remove them, and then we'll replace the WC write count with underscore to indicate that it won't be used. Next, let's change this handle hello function a little bit. It handles the root, so let's make it more of a root. Let's change the response that we write to the root to be welcome to our homepage instead of hello world. And then let's change this from handle hello to handle root. If we use the IDE's refactor ability, it'll change all the names for us, including in our tests, but we'll need to change this test name ourselves. Now, because we've made a change, let's go ahead and run our tests. And you can see one of our tests is failing. This makes sense. We changed the body, and it's letting us know that this is no longer hello world. Let's change the test. And let's make sure that we capitalize it exactly the same, otherwise this will fail. We run them again, and everything is green. So far, our server can return responses to us, but it's not terribly useful. We need a way to take in data and provide it to the functions. There are a couple ways that we can do this. Let's start with a parameterized query. For this, let's also do testing first. Close this down. And in order to make it easier to write the test, let's go ahead and scaffold in the function. We're going to put this on hello. And we'll call it handle hello parameterized. And because this is just an empty function, it'll return a status 200. Let's go ahead and make a temporary error to make sure that we don't confuse ourselves. I usually use internal server error with the error of not implemented. Now we can write the test function. Over here, we're still underscoring the HTTP request because we're not using it. This is just a placeholder error. But we're going to need to have a request if we're going to read parameters out of it. Fortunately, the HTTP test package will help us create a new request. We're going to set it to the method get. And the body will still be nil. We're only really interested in targeting this with a request parameter. And now we need a new test recorder. We can still call our handle func directly in the same way we have been, and provide it with the test recorder, but now we also have to give it the request. The rest of the test looks much like the others. We're going to want to check the status code, so we're going to store that as a variable, and then check it. Not forgetting to include the body. And we'll also want to check the body returned. In this case, we're going to say hello and the username that's been provided to us. And we're going to compare these like we have been. Now let's run our test. We expect this to fail, and it does. Bad response code and bad body. With that done, we're ready to write our handler. First, let's go ahead and say that this is now R, because we will need to use it. We'll delete the temporary error. We'll need to be able to get the query out of the URL. Fortunately, this is stored in the request. As a note here, you can see that this is just the raw query, and if we wanted to be more strict about this, we could actually use parse query and pass the raw query here. This would return some errors, but for this, it's okay, we're just going to leave it simple. The other thing to note about query, which isn't really called out specifically, but you can see in the examples here, is that it's going to return a map. There's a possibility that the value of this map at the key that we're going to be looking for, which is user, could have more than one value. We want to make sure that we use the first one in this, again, just to keep it simple. This would also be a great place to use a constant instead of a magic string, but again, we're just doing a simple example here. Now we need to assemble a response. Let's do it this way because we need to mix and match strings. We'll create a bytes buffer, and to it we'll write the prefix using write string. And we'll make sure to include our space here. Next, we'll write our username, which will be in our user list at the 0 index. For this, we're not supporting more than one entry. Lastly, let's add the exclamation point and the new line. Note that there's no space here. And once again, we will go ahead and write the response body. And we'll write the bytes. Because it's a bytes buffer, we can easily call .bytes on this. And once again, we'll go ahead and just log the error if it does occur. It shouldn't, but we'll be safe. Now, let's run our tests again. And everything's green. We've successfully implemented this. Now that the test is passing, let's test it for real. Let's run the program. As you can see, it started. Next, we'll pull up our API testing tool, and we'll make a request to this new endpoint. It's already set to GET, so we should be good there. And then we'll send it. And as you can see, we got our response. But what if we forgot to add a parameter? Oh no, we have a big problem. We can see here that we had an index out of range. Our program panicked. Let's go ahead and stop the server. And for now, we'll go ahead and minimize that. Because params is a map, and we've keyed into it without checking whether or not this was valid, it's returned the default value, which is an empty list. There's a couple ways that we could handle this. First off, we could use the "OK" idiom, and then say, if this is okay, then we do this work. The other thing that we can do is we can check the length of the list, and that would allow us to make some other decisions, such as, do we return anything at all if you provided more than one argument, or is there a fallback if there is no argument provided? Well, let's go ahead and add tests first that cover both no parameter or a wrong parameter, because that could also be a possibility. Maybe this was a typo. Let's go ahead and have a challenge. Add 2 tests that'll cover 2 different cases here. First case will be no parameter is passed into the request. Second will be that the wrong parameter is passed into the request. Use something like foo equals bar. In both cases, we expect a status OK to come back, just like we have before. Also, for this, we'll say that we want to have a default response. It'll be hello, comma, user, with an exclamation point and a new line character, just like we've done in other endpoints. Go ahead and pause the video and give this a try now. Hopefully that wasn't too hard, and you're able to get these tests added. Let's go ahead and walk through them now. And this is where I like to append the behavior I'm testing to the test name like so. This will be no parameter. Let's just copy this, because we're testing the exact same thing. We're just changing the parameters, literally. This one will point just to the hello endpoint. In here, we'll update the body. Like we said, we want to say hello, comma, user, exclamation point, and our new line. You could equally say unauthorized or not found, or whatever makes your API make the most sense here. Now let's test for a wrong parameter. The behavior for this should be exactly the same, but we want to make sure that it stays that way. If we run these, then we can see we've reproduced our panic for no parameter. Let's go ahead and fix that. In order to do so, let's set a variable with our username as the default. Now let's check our parameter length. I will just say if it's greater than 0, we'll overwrite the username variable that we just set up with the value stored in the first index of the list. Down here, we now need to send back that username. And then let's run our test again. And as you can see, everything is passing. Let's go ahead and start our server again. And if we pull up our API testing tool, we can see the default comes back. If we add a parameter that doesn't exist, we get the same behavior. And if we add the correct parameter, we still get our answer. And that'll wrap up this section. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you learned something. If you'd like to support me and help me to create more content like this, check the video description below for ways in which you can do that. You can also just share this video with your friends, and that'll help a lot too. Thank you very much again, and we'll see you in the next one.